Okay, so also we talked about how women should never spiritually lead anyone ever.
We did not say that.
So when
we did
when
not say that.
When men in family and relationship aren't doing their leading stuff,
right,
or aren't Christians at all and leading toward Christian Jesus,
right,
what should women do?
Okay, I mean it's a great question because it's pretty common. Like, to be honest with you, right?
Okay.
Like when you walk into churches.
This is a deep Christian question.
Yeah, like when you walk into churches, there are so many women there that are at church, oftentimes with their children without their husband, or maybe their grandchildren or whatever. But yet their husband's not there with them, and it breaks my heart. But it is pretty common.
It's because he died in the war.
Well, if that's the case, that's a whole different story, isn't it,
okay.
Nate? Yeah, but I'm talking about the husband that just chooses not to go, right, to church. The husband that chooses not to be there. And yeah, I mean, but that's a real thing. And I think it's, and so where I've seen it is kind of like twofold. Like there's the husband that would say he's a Christian, would say he's a follower of Christ, but because he's working Monday through Friday or Monday through Saturday, Sunday's his only off day, and so he chooses to go do something with his buddies or fish or whatever, right? And instead of going to church, but he would say he's still a Christian. And then you have the other, maybe the husband that's just not interested in the things of God at all, right? Like doesn't care about the Lord, doesn't care about Christ, doesn't, not interested. Fine if you want to believe that, but I could care less, right? And those can both be challenging situations for wives with their kids because they want the support, of their husbands. And especially if they're wanting to raise their kids in church, it's going to work for a while if you're bringing your kids to church, when they're younger. But eventually, if they see dad not going, well, then why do I have to go?
Right.
And that will become a natural question. And families navigate that differently. Sometimes it's kind of wild. Sometimes the husbands will say, no, you need to go to church. Like it's good for them, the kid, even when they're like in middle school or whatever. Yeah, no, you still need to go to church. Like it's as if it's good for them to be taught values or whatever, whatever. But I'm good. I did it when I was your age. You go, almost like when you get old enough, you don't have to go to church anymore. And so that's a reality.
Like school.
Right. Yeah, like school. But there's also the ones that are like, you're right. You're old enough now. You can make your own decision. Up to you. And I think oftentimes the children, they're looking at both parents, and it can be a bit of a torn situation of one's following Christ, one isn't, or one's going to church, one isn't. What do I do? And so that can be tricky. I'm just not gonna lie, it can be tricky. And so, but I don't want the woman to ever feel like, or the wife to ever, the wife, the mother, to ever feel like she cannot lead just because her husband's not leading.
Okay.
Right? Like, no, she can absolutely lead her children in many of the ways we just talked about, where you're praying with your children, where you're doing devotions with your kids, where you're taking them to church, where you're setting an example of what it looks like to love Jesus and to love others. You're setting an example of what it looks like to worship the Lord. I really think that is so important for a wife to, or for a mother to do. And again, I know it's really hard, and and sometimes it can just suck when you feel like you're doing it by yourself. You're just out there alone.
So you're not saying that they can't spiritually lead. You're just saying that they shouldn't be supposed to have to.
I'm saying in the ideal world.
Okay.
Right? In the ideal world, the husband and the father is taking the responsibility to lead. Okay. But like that's ideal, right? That's not the real deal for most people, right? I mean, for a lot of families, unfortunately, what's going on is, again, the husband is not caring about the things of the Lord, not caring about the things spiritually. And so it does fall back then on the wife to do that. And it's fully fine for her to take that responsibility as the mom to lead her children in the ways of the Lord and to point them to Jesus.
Does it not work as well when the wives are doing it?
Here's what I have seen. This is just what I've witnessed, okay? is that it's not that it doesn't work. It's not that the wife, what she's doing is not effective. Okay.
Okay.
But the problem can be is that when you have the house really is divided, right, at that point.
Okay.
And so you can have children then that go, well, you know what? I'm seeing Dad. He seems to be doing fine. I don't, he's not, going to church. He's being able to do other things, whatever. I'm just going to do what Dad does. What I've often seen is children, to be honest with you, a lot of them will go, well, you know what? Dad doesn't seem to care, so I'm not going to care either. And often that's what happens. But I don't want to say that's the only thing. I know in our church right now, there are individuals who have fathers that, do not go to church, whether at all or definitely not regularly, but yet as grown adults now, even though their dad didn't go to church, they do. And their family does.
Why are you talking about this, about going to church, though?
Okay.
Like, can the dad not spiritually lead and not go to church?
No, that's a good question. Good point. Man, I don't really ever see that, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Usually, if an individual is active in their faith, one of the components is going to church.
Okay.
But I'm not saying it has to be the only component. And you're right. There can be, hey, we're going to pray together, or we're going to talk about the Lord. Like, that can happen. You're right. Outside of going to church, I just don't see that very often. And I think it's
because you're always at church.
Well, I'm just saying the people that I talk to and what I just witnessed. Now, I will say this. There is a difference between a man who has to work on Sundays and cannot make it to church, right?
Okay.
Like, that's a completely different story, because they're not making like an intentional decision of, I'm not going to church. It's, I've got to work at this time, right? And they have no choice because of their job or their career. They have to work. So I'm not.
You put your church on Facebook.
We do.
Yeah,
we do. And actually, to be honest with you, like we have a gentleman, and he would love to be at church every Sunday morning, but because of his work schedule, he cannot. So he actually gets off. When he gets off work is when we just finished up service, and so is when he gets off work. And so he actually on his drive home from Atlanta, he actually watches or listens to the service on his way home from Atlanta, because we just had finished. And so
while his wife and kids are there.
Mm-hmm, yeah. And so, his wife, his adult son, their children. And so, so, again, that's part of it. Where some men have to work. But I will say, for this individual that I know, he has been very spiritually active in their kids' lives. Like, when his kids were younger growing up, like, they were talking about the Lord. They were praying together, that kind of thing, right? Like, so, and I know several examples of this where, again, men are working because that's just, they have to. And so that's, okay, I get it. But they're not saying Jesus isn't important. They're
right.
up front with their kids. I have to work. I hate that I have to work and miss church. I have to, but they still have conversations about Jesus. They still talk about the Lord. They still pray together. Like, they still make that a priority. So that's a good point you bring up. I don't want to make it as if going to church or not going to church determines whether you're a spiritual leader or not. So, So good point. Good point. Well taken.
All right. So what have you seen from women on how it's hard? When husband is not a Christian.
Yeah. Okay. If we go to that point, you just have value clashes, right? The things that are important. And so, I think that can be really hard for some women, like just complete value clash, they really think, for example, that following the Lord is important, being with a community of believers is important. And their husband may just be ragging them all the time. Why are you going to church? Why don't you spend time here with the family or with me? And it's like they feel like caught in between, and so sometimes it's a personal struggle of feeling caught in between. And then other times it's just the morals or the values, like, hey, I don't want to, and this can happen too. Like, you've got a couple and let's say one of them comes to know Christ after they got married. And that does happen. So we have one that comes to know Christ after they get married. And now the two are in conflict in some ways because the other one maybe still wants to, party or, act a certain way or do certain things. And the other one now is going, I know we used to do that, but I no longer want to do that. And that can be difficult because the person can feel like Christ or that other one's religion or church is actually pulling them away from the family.
So if there were no children, what does that mean for the woman just by herself?
What do you mean? What does it mean for her?
Like, does she have to lead herself or just not get led at all?
Yeah, no, she's leading. Yeah, I mean, she's leading herself, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so if the husband is not following Christ, she's having to be the spiritual leader for herself and for her kids.
Okay.
If she has kids. And so, and then obviously, again, hopefully connected
to a church family. What if she doesn't want to do that? Okay, so what does Jesus think?
Okay.
If husband is supposed to spiritually lead from Christian perspective, and that's his job, and her job is to not do that, but there's children, is it a sin for her to not lead the kids?
Okay.
When it's not her job?
No, she still needs to. Okay, is it a sin? All right. So if we're going to define sin as missing the mark, okay, if we're going to use that phrase. Then, no, I think that she absolutely should be sharing her faith with her children. Okay. So, yes, it would be a sin in the sense of
But that's not her job, according to Jesus.
Well, it's not, you're right. It's not her job in the sense of it shouldn't have to fall on her, but it is falling on her.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, because it's not, because we talked about last week was that, all right, that Christ is the head of man, man is the head of woman, right? But then with parents and their children, it's the parents that are the head of the children, right?
Okay.
And so for her, if her husband is going to neglect the aspect of leading spiritually,
then she has to listen to Jesus directly and not.
She has to follow the Lord and pass that on to her own children.
Because it's a straight line down.
Mm-hmm.
God, Jesus, men, women, children.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But to be clear, it's not like it's man, woman, children. Children are only woman's responsibility, right? Obviously, the man is supposed to be to lead. Right. Ideally, the man would be to lead the whole household, right?
So if man's not there, then she just goes to his paws and asks him.
And that's Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
and again, and hopefully this is happening in the community context of a church family.
Okay.
And I think that's really important too, because again, you're putting in a community. Now the children, okay, so maybe the children doesn't get like that fatherly figure, like, their father leading them spiritually in their own home, but they can see other men following Jesus. And especially I think for boys and girls to see men following Jesus is actually a really healthy thing.
Okay.
And because what they can see is, okay, not all dads, not all men neglect Jesus and neglect the church. You always
bring this back to going to church, as if God's not everywhere else.
God is everywhere, but we are meant to be in community, brother. Okay. We are meant to be in community.
Fine.
Yes.